My car doesn't have room for another person because it gets too full. But
Hello?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. You could like
Hello?
show up and check out. Sometimes people a while yeah.
And what? 2 more?
Yeah.
Why you gotta break stuff? Are you trying to prop it over your cup?
I figured nobody would notice. Take an ice cream.
There you go. What was it? Oh, they had a commercial with MC Hammer for the clip-on tacky glue, like things for the wall. And he pops out of this little toolbox. He goes, "It ain't hammer time." And it's one of those moments where I actually rewound the commercial on the, I'm like, this is great. This is so great. Yeah.
Yeah, the big ones were the ones that stick out. Yeah. There was one by the side of the freeway.
Wait till we do talk on goat placentas.
Let's see how my example will
Yeah, I just don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, I've been doing for a few years. I do a lot of reading online. Very quickly. I'm definitely
The goat placenta?
always.
Function in that, yes, there is a good chance it's in your future, so I would be quiet. So, it's coming. Are we one more down?
Yeah.
Okay. That is awesome. Everyone who has a nice, delicious drink this evening, thank you, Maddie. I'm in the funkiest mood, so this is going to be comedy, probably better than I've written in a long time. So it's hard. This one is hard. Who here has or experienced or been working with some type of cholesterol drug in their past? Anybody been on any type of statin? No, everybody stay away from those.
I'm working on my mother right now.
That's good. All right. So those issues, like I say, family, trying to get them to convert over when the problem, like I say, always when it comes to parents hearing anything from children is called powder butt syndrome. There was a time and place in your life when they only took care of your bottom, and that means you can never give them any advice that they're ever going to accept. So there's this interesting issue on the whole. But now, if you tell your best friend, hey, by the way, go and talk to my mom about this whole thing, it'll be like, oh, yeah, and it'll totally make sense. And so you just got to remove yourself out of the equation and actually allow for someone else to provide the same exact details, and without the water syndrome in the way, it'll totally make sense, and that'll work.
I'll give it a shot, but she got a new doctor.
Uh-huh.
The doctor took her off the statins.
Oh, that's good.
And my mum decided that because she still had some,
She's just gonna keep it.
she put herself back on them. I'm like, what are you doing
Oh,
that?
no.
But what I noticed, and my sister did too, is that when she first went on,
Yeah.
like 3 years ago, her memory started to fade. And then she gets frustrated and all those kinds of things.
Yep.
And then since she's been off and not for very long, like maybe the last 2-3 months,
Okay.
it's just kind of bounced.
Yep. Like I say, one of the funkiest, weirdest things about this whole concept of cholesterol is how absolutely critical it is for just normal brain function. Normal brain function, not even great brain function, just normal brain function. And it is interesting how once the forgetfulness comes in, and then the accident-prone clumsiness comes in, then all the joints start to hurt, then the drugs just keep kind of multiplying, and they go through that whole process. So we'll go through a lot of that. Like I say, don't really care to not talk over the Vitamix, but I realized last week we didn't read. I went back and watched the video. I didn't stop. We kind of got started, and then I don't know what happened there. I let it all get caught up and be all freaky.
Was that your water pump?
Yes,
Okay.
last week.
So it's on video, I can see it?
It should still be available either through Twitter or Ustream. If not, it'll be on YouTube. I'm finally getting through the last little edits of cutting off the ends and things like that, so it should be maybe this week or next week on the Water Talk. Yep. On Tuesday next week is the Whole Food versus Vitamin Talk. So that one's going to be interesting. Artisan's Palette, not here at RF. So if you have not been to Artisan's Palette, it's a fantastic place to go and spend a little bit of time. Over there in the Timaku Kmart Shopping Center, and we're just going to go over a ton of history and a lot of actual really amazing studies that have been done that show, and I didn't want to pick a winner before I looked at the information, but show how whole foods versus vitamins work in ways that try to get people to be healthy, and why there probably is some sort of issue in the vitamin world for what they're kind of not doing as well as what we saw in Whole Foods. But it turned out to be kind of interesting, very interesting. Lots of unique information from all over the world about vitamins in general and why even we started putting vitamins together the way we did instead of just eating real things. So that'll be on Tuesday. So that'll be a lot of fun. 4 o'clock at Artisan's Palette for anybody who hasn't been to that talk. And then this coming Friday, so I'll be here Thursday again. Friday we'll also be with the Optimal Wellness Network at my actual office. We'll be doing talks 4 times a month there as well too. So there's more talks that will be available. I'll get up to hopefully 8 to 10 talks per month, and we'll see how it just keeps going from there. And we'll just keep multiplying. So
What days and time?
if you look on my website, brilliancenutrition.com, the Optimal Wellness is going to be on the 1st and 4th Tuesday at 5:30, and Friday, the 2nd and 3rd Friday at 12. So I'm trying to open things up for daytime as well too, and not make everything just be towards the evenings. That's maybe not the best thing for everyone, and we'll see. Like I said, it'll be a lot more fun, do a few different things. I'm really hoping to take the suggestion from last time, and I'm trying to work with a couple people on the whole idea for cooking demonstration workshop, an actual kind of platform for that. If I can't do it any other way, I'm just going to do it at my house, and you guys will have to do it with my dogs, and it'll be fun. But
Are you talking about also like raw food chicken? Or it's not really cooking?
raw food cooking is that's an oxymoron.
I know.
But no, it is definitely one of those where we would like I say, I'll look at doing different styles, different presentations, moving forward with the idea of like a smoothie kind of tonic class again, and then more of the cooking stuff. I really want to do like a snack focused one. I think everybody kind of loses it on the snacks. Everybody doesn't really keep their snacks healthy. So that's going to be a fun one.
You said that first and second Tuesdays?
First and fourth Tuesday, and then second and third Friday. Kind of funky, but I got to work the times for the building and how they open up. Finito? Woohoo! All right. Welcome everybody to Raw Revelations, to this week's Thoughtful Thursday. I am Coach Joe. Thank you so much for coming out, for spending these Thursdays and really taking, like I say, that active role in your health and in your wellness and trying to understand all this stuff. Like I say, we come here every week. I just got done talking about the idea of multiple talks happening. 8 to 10 a month. The idea is there's a lot of information to get through on anyone trying to be healthy. So today we're going to focus on cholesterol, and really I'm going to just focus on the concept of the cholesterol myth. There's a major issue out there in the information, and that is cholesterol is killing you, and you need to stay away from it. And instead we have found very much so the opposite to be true. And so 50 years ago, there was a major concern, a major issue brought up, and cholesterol became the number one bad guy for human health. And a lot of people bought onto the idea. Fast forward 20 years later, the first actual statin drugs developed, Lipitor, and the history that's been brought down, want me to help you on that? Is one of those to where we've seen the drugs just keep coming out in order to reduce statin or to reduce cholesterol levels. And the problem is we just see more and more issues with people, like we were talking about before. Not seeing health benefits, seeing health detriments, and seeing a lot of breakdown in the actual body. So, as we should always do on Thursdays in every class that I do, we'll definitely take our moment to actually go through our conscious breathing exercise. For anybody who's joining us online, catching this through either Periscope or on Ustream or across through YouTube, we always try to just get a focused minute of actual deep breathing, good exercise, good mentality to have towards the idea of being healthy. So really, really important is to actually consciously breathe, activate the parasympathetic nervous system, know what you're doing with your body, and get it to where you can finally use all the muscles you're supposed to use. That's the most important part there. They're there for you to use. So the way we do this is we take a long inhalation. Once we have full lungs, we're waiting a couple seconds, and we take a big exhalation, 7 seconds in, 8 seconds out. That gets us to fully exercise the lungs, and then we do that twice. That's 30 seconds, and then 30 seconds of just space before we move on to the next piece of this. And learn a little more about how the cholesterol people just not happy with them right now. So if you follow along with me, the big thing here is, again, you want to really notice that your actual diaphragmatic breath is pushing all of your stomach material out and down. That's how you can open up the lungs. So if you're breathing really shallow and all the way up top here, you're really not getting the job done. So try to make some awareness of that. If you got your hands on the sternum here, just below the rib cage, it's going to let you touch the diaphragm and see how your body's actually breathing. So if you'll follow along with me at home, like I say, catch yourselves. If you can stand up, it might help a little bit, but don't worry about that here. The idea is we want to take just that long inhalation of 7 seconds. Big full lungs for a couple seconds there, and then 8 seconds of breath out. All the way down to where technically there's nothing left, and 7 seconds of breath in. Big full lungs, and then 8 seconds of breath out. And then 30 seconds of just normal breathing and very little noise from Maddie. Fantastic. So, in 1951, a single paper was written. And at the end of one of the conclusion paragraphs on that paper, it said, there is a probability that cholesterol is important in understanding the risks towards cardiovascular disease. That's it. That's the only line we understand. And from that moment, the war on cholesterol kind of began. And that line was used over and over and over and over again in order to try to bring about really the gamification of the egg industry, the concepts of full-fat dairy being unhealthy, butter being the worst that you could possibly take into your body. Everybody needed to be started eating trans fats and margarines and vegetable oils. All this crazy work started to be done to allow one of the most critical nutrients in the body to be removed from our dietary structure. And the substitutes that were given, soybean oil and canola oil and rapeseed oil and all these really crazy material that we've never put in our body before, became the only way for us to quote unquote survive. We were taking natural foods that we had been surrounded by for thousands of years and replacing them with chemistry projects and laboratory-derived material that we had just figured out could be used for something as interesting as food preservation and not letting quote-unquote rancid food be delivered to grocery stores and thousands and millions of dollars of waste to be created. And instead what we had is now a highly inflated medical system with thousands of people dying every year and a lot of times being starved of this one key critical nutrient, that's cholesterol. Cholesterol, again, is funny because we all, if we've struggled against it and what it does inside the body, it's unique because I can't say that cholesterol isn't eventually going to be a problem or it's not a bad guy. It can cause issues, just like sugar can, just like cow skin can, just like anything that's overabundant in the body's not processing it very well. The unique thing on cholesterol, though, is that you, in every single one of your 7 to 10 trillion of cells, has a double ring of cholesterol inside your body already. If you stopped eating all fats tomorrow, you still are mostly cholesterol than even than any other major construct for the human body. More so than protein. And adipose tissue, loose-bounded cholesterol, very different than what we actually see when it comes to the phospholipid chains that form our cells. But literally, cholesterol is holding you together. It's protecting you. It's making sure your cellular insides stay inside, that your blood and all the other stuff stays outside, and that there's an exchange rate of keeping things normal and homeostasis working. Cholesterol is mostly found in 3 of the most vital organs, the liver, the heart, and the brain. That's where we have the highest concentrations of cholesterol. And so when we start to use a drug, especially like statins, that reduce our blood's ability to hold or to digest or maintain cholesterol levels, we start starving our body of cholesterol. We start actually ripping it out of the rest of our cells, and we actually start breaking our body down in order to get cholesterol back in. When there's an actual deficiency in cholesterol, your body has digestive enzymes in order for it to actually go in and break it out of different cells and destroy and kill cells in order to find the cholesterol that it needs. So when we went on the low-fat diet craze, we thought everything needed to be 0 calories in order to be healthy. We actually started really starving our bodies out, and it was really good about breaking us down in the areas where we needed the most function. So 25 years later, Alzheimer's, fibromyalgia, leaky gut syndrome, all these major degenerative illnesses and diseases can a lot of times be contributed to the use or the misunderstanding of cholesterol in our health and how it's supposed to actually do its job. We've heard that there's a good cholesterol, that there's a bad cholesterol, that there's a ratio that you have to maintain in order for you to be healthy. And it's so unique because I think, honestly, no one really stopped for 3 seconds to go back and look at what we did 100 years ago or where our understanding for cholesterol began and to really get a handle on what was happening here. So we just said, okay, sure, good and bad cholesterol. I'll just follow along. I'll make sure that I keep my triglycerides down. I'll keep my ratio of good to bad as best I possibly can. And then the unique thing is you end up having an issue to where your body tries to heal, and the way it heals is actually by putting more cholesterol inside the bloodstream. When we hear about concepts like LDL, low density lipoproteins, these are the beginning structures for actually healing when you break open a capillary, when you break open a blood vessel, when you get any kind of injury to your body, or you're just grossly inflamed in all of your intracellular and intercellular spaces. Cholesterol is trying to get in there and stop the holes. It's literally like the cartoons where you've got Donald Duck and Goofy trying to stick their fingers in all the holes in order to keep the boat from sinking. And that's what cholesterol is doing. Those low density proteins are the biggest ones. They're the largest pieces in trying to patch a hole. And so they go in first. And then the HDLs, they come in and they smear up all the small areas that are actually still open in order to get all the little nooks and crannies in order to heal an area in order to not allow it to be inflamed. For it to actually, so when you go through surgery, you're going to get a cholesterol spike. When you actually have just routine inflammation, trauma, like everybody does, major stress, you're going to keep pumping cholesterol into the bloodstream. And that's where we've seen cholesterol numbers and counts go on the rise. And yes, some people have bad diets and have high cholesterol. Some people actually have extremely fat-free, what we would call a healthy diet, and still have skyrocketing cholesterol. And that's one of these unique parts where it's not exactly one of those where we can say people who eat meat, high cholesterol, people who don't, low cholesterol. That's really not how it works. We've actually seen the very opposite occur more often than not. Fat-starved people end up having a much higher cholesterol count because of their level of inflammation and the amount of breakage in their bodies. And then we actually see people who are eating literally gobs of fat have a regularly balanced cholesterol value because their body's taking it in and using it properly. So it's unique because we really want to stop the whole conversation. I don't get into the conversation anymore. There is no such thing as good or bad. Just don't even say the words. It's just cholesterol. Your body has different types of cholesterol. That's like saying there's bad muscle fibers and good muscle fibers. Or there's, again, bad adipose tissue and good adipose tissue. There actually is. There's brown fats and white fats in there. That one's not the best example. But the unique thing here is that our body, when it's trying to be understood in the discovery process, we get confused by the details we're finding without actually stepping back and looking at the big picture here. So we spent 15, 20 years really heavy in the laboratory looking at just what LDL protein or LDLs do, the low density lipoproteins. And all we did was make every drug we could find out in order to actually stop them from functioning, because we saw them as the things that would cause plaquing of arteries and actually atherosclerosis. We saw them as the things that would destroy valves inside the heart. And we really came in and said, this is the major issue. If we stop this, this will solve our problems. And it didn't work. And then we just said, oops, we have this huge industry we need to support. So why don't we just keep giving it out? Because that's going to end up making things a little bit easier for us. It's unique because cholesterol, again, rises based upon your level of inflammation. If there's one test out there that I would recommend everybody understanding for their own body, it's what's called C-reactive protein. That C-reactive protein count gives you an idea of how routinely your body is inflamed. And if you see high triglycerides or high cholesterol counts, and you also have a high C-reactive protein count, you could say to a doctor, well, that makes sense. I'm inflamed, I've got high cholesterol, my body's trying to heal. Instead of thinking for some reason that there's a dietary or a behavioral or any kind of issue going on inside the person, the idea is take a look at the environment, see what's happening inside the system, and really address if there is a problem. If they just went through knee reconstructive surgery and they've got high cholesterol, that makes sense. If they're a person who has any kind of routine issues when it comes to fibromyalgia, leaky gut syndrome, and they're routinely being inflamed, it makes sense that they have a higher than normal, quote-unquote, cholesterol. But it's unique as well, too. If you're a person who has Mediterranean blood, you're on average going to have a slightly lower cholesterol count. If you're a person who has more Norwegian, Scandinavian provenances, you're going to have a much higher cholesterol count. If you're a person of Native American or even Native Inuit, so high Arctic Native American, the Eskimo tribes, they have a triple value compared to our cholesterol count because they are in a much higher latitude with a much lower temperature and their bodies are burning a ton of energy all the time. The closer you get to the equator, your body doesn't need to insulate itself so well. The cellular spaces don't need to protect itself as much, so you can actually see cholesterol start to drop down. Healthy cholesterol still goes somewhere between about 200 and 300. The unique thing is we're told 199 for some reason is healthy and 200 is unhealthy, and that needs to be checked. It needs to be understood. And if you keep going any higher, we're going to actually bring you a drug, and it's going to make that level go down. And if it doesn't, we'll give you more of the drug, and if that doesn't work, we'll keep giving you more of the drug. We'll try different drugs, and we'll figure out which one's going to eventually stop your body from taking cholesterol. And the sad part in that is the more you take the drug, the more your body's inflamed, the more you're going to need cholesterol. So you're really just bailing from the ocean into the tub, trying to get the water out, and it's not going to work. Oh, welcome. Good evening. Come on in. So diet does a lot in the same way that, like we're talking about inflammation causes cholesterol to rise. So if you're eating a lot of allergenic foods, if you're eating a lot of heavy preservatives, a lot of toxicity compounds, you're going to see cholesterol rise. So if you're actually trying to get control on cholesterol, first and foremost, take a look at the diet structure, understand what you're eating on a routine basis. Are these foods good for me? Am I the type of person who eats a little too much fast food? Am I eating the microwave burrito at 10:30 at night with the ice cream and the pizza? Is there a problem going on here that I can fix and then discover if maybe I need some assistance towards reducing cholesterol values? Everybody has this fear, and yet the understanding is that 3 days prior to the release of Lipitor, healthy cholesterol counts were 240 on the average human being in America at the time, and then they reduced it to 199. And technically speaking, everybody between 240 and 199 now were clientele customers and people who obviously needed a drug. And that's the exact way it happened. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's the way, and the idea was full-fat dairy, butter, eggs, all these fantastic cholesterol donors, all these healthy food products were the staple foods that we all were taking in. Milk was being delivered in small trucks to your front door. You were getting fresh cream butter. You were eating foods that actually were natural and healthy. And all it did was just usher in a whole crazy way of allowing the food preservation system after World War II to really take control, really having an issue there. So what's unique to me is that I also find a lot of people who talk about the effects of their emotional state and their cholesterol values. That they can actually see if they're a person who has high anxiety, they tend to have a much higher cholesterol count. People who have a little bit of a more depressive state actually end up having lower HDL counts, but also lower LDL counts, so the ratio stays okay. So there's something about the idea of maybe staying sedentary and not actually moving around so much that a lot of people who don't really feel like doing that might actually be some benefit to that, versus a person who has a very high anxiety, more sleeplessness, a lot of inflammation occurring in their body from different things they might be doing. Caffeine, again, is another interesting compound that sometimes can play a part in this. But the unique thing that I would say really makes the biggest difference for me is if you're taking in something your body cannot digest, it's going to cause inflammation. And that's going to result in a change to the cholesterol counts for your bloodstream. It does make sense that we actually test routinely when we see an issue, and we watch how our values change, and we need to know that dietary controls are the better controls than there is anything from the actual drug world. The drug system, again, seems to incite the actual release of more cholesterol until eventually there's so much saturation of the cholesterol values in the bloodstream that you can't put any more, and that's when you plateau, and then the actual prescribing physician will say, look, we finally got it. It's now stuck at 265. Okay, great. We're going to stay there and keep it on you on the drug in order to make sure that we don't see it crest any higher. This artificial ceiling has been created where your body can't even hold any more cholesterol, and now you start putting cholesterol in places where it shouldn't be. In the actual arterial walls, you start putting it inside the different areas of the gut system. It starts going into the kidneys because it can't be filtered out of the blood enough, so you end up developing kidney failure or kidney, the systemic, or Courtney, help me out. What is it whenever the kidneys routinely start to fail? Is chronic kidney disease or something like that? Okay. Yeah, so again, the unique thing is your blood's so thick, it can't even hold enough water out to keep the kidneys from actually starting to seal with cholesterol. And that's because you've told the blood not to absorb anymore, for it not to be utilized, for it not to be digested very effectively. So emotions, anxiety, those behavioral patterns, sleeplessness, those things do affect your cholesterol count. Your dietary system definitely has a big impact on this. And the level of inflammation in your body to where you can see a C-reactive protein test is going to give us a pretty good indication as to why that might be happening. So, I love the fact that, again, food first solutions. This is the nice, easy way. This is why we're all sitting here at Raw Revelations, is that there are an amazing collection of material surrounding us here that actually will allow you to control cholesterol in a very easy way. And that's the unique part. It doesn't require any crazy knowledge. There's nothing that I would say anybody here can't make a very good understanding for. If you put more fiber in your digestive system, it clumps the cholesterol and allows you to excrete it out of the body as best as you possibly can. And actually a very, very healthy process because it lubricates the digestive system, allows for better bowel movement. Everything seems to be improved whenever you allow simply the addition of soluble and insoluble fiber to come into the body. So superfoods like the rice bran solubles, like the maca, moringa, lucuma, even the sunflower lecithin, probably one of the better of the actual cholesterol reducers that we've been able to find with the compound choline, again, seems to really do a good job for eliminating the overall coagulation or the clumping of the actual cholesterol molecules inside the body. The other thing we have found is there's an inverse relationship with the amount of fats that you eat and the amount of cholesterol in the bloodstream. For every single body type, and yes, ethnic origination does play an effect for this. People who are more South Pacific Islanders versus main continental African versus South American high altitude individuals have a different relationship in their blood system for the way that cholesterol is supposed to be appropriated. It all has to do with how well your body can survive in the environment where your blood is most typically going to be found. So that eat right for your blood type diet really does play some effect here, because if you're eating foods that are completely foreign to your body, you're probably going to have more allergenic issues, or at least maybe not produce the right enzymes right away that actually will help you break things down. So if you're a Mediterranean person eating a very South American diet, that can cause issues. Same thing as if we're, again, here sitting in America and we actually are eating a lot of tropical fruits, a lot of material that our bodies just aren't used to processing, can cause issues. We see a lot of problems in most of the Native American tribes as well too, because they're eating food that have been imported from Europe and their bodies just don't know how to break down everything effectively. So their diets have been changed very radically. We've all moved now globally all over the place in order to find what suits us best. And we're eating foods that seasonally wouldn't normally be available to us, and that can cause a lot of these issues. But continuously eating good sources of actually monosaturated fat and very healthy saturated fats and staying away from the polysaturated fats is so important. So the reason monosaturated fats, again, are very helpful for the idea of keeping cholesterol is your body knows how to break them down very effectively. They come technically open to digestion as you're eating them. Your body doesn't have to try to break them down. It actually digests them and clips off the lipids very, very effectively. A saturated fat, it actually doesn't have as much of the potential, but your body has the enzymes, and it actually knows how to break those down very effectively too. A lot of the polysaturated fats, or the fats that come from plants, our system is not used to going through that process and breaking those apart. So the oil-based material from a lot of plants causes our bodies to be taxed and not know how to digest them efficiently. So that can cause a lot of the concern, and we see that because most of the highly preserved packaged foods, microwave material, fast foods, a lot of the junk that's out there, they are going to those particular oils that come from the soybean, canola, vegetable sources that our bodies don't know how to break it down. And the reason why we see it really coagulating the blood is it needs to be about 110 to 115 degrees for it to maintain its liquid state, versus the coconut oil or an animal protein or animal oil is a lot of times somewhere between 70 and 80. So our body's natural heating temperature keeps those liquid very effectively. When we've got to heat something up very extensively, I don't know if anybody here is the type of person who likes to eat the cacao butter, but the oil from the cacao bean at room temperature, extremely solid. And if you rub it all over your body, it'll never go to a liquid and actually be to the point to where it would flow through the bloodstream very effectively. Still very healthy butter, healthy oil. We like it a lot, great flavor. So the cacao butter here is, again, a plant oil that needs a much higher temperature for it to actually turn back to liquid. So you've got to throw it into a quick drink, you've got to take it into something that's warm, and you want to keep the body as warm as possible when you're trying to digest things like that. Again, we have the concept of a burger of fries and a classic Coke full of ice. And what that does is that coagulates and actually shuts down the digestive system for a lot of the oils and the fats that are coming in that meal. So that is a relationship that we really need to start to look at and understand. I mentioned enzymes for a second there. We all produce, if you have an intact gallbladder, we have the enzyme lipase. Lipase helps us break fats apart. If you have a non-functioning or no gallbladder, then you need the enzyme support of lipase. It has to be a part of your general eating plan, otherwise you're not breaking any of the fats down. And that's a major concern and issue for a lot of individuals because most of our major nutrient nutrition comes from fat-soluble sources. Vitamins A, E, K, D are all fat-soluble vitamins that if you don't have the ability to break them down with lipase, then you're never going to be able to absorb those back into the bloodstream. Vitamins become the only way for you to actually get those materials back into the body. You can't trust foods to be the only source anymore. I mentioned B12 because B12, again, is a metabolizer. It's a great B vitamin. All the B vitamins metabolize one thing or another. They actually work on certain types of materials. So B3 is great for carbohydrates. B1, B5, B6 do better on sugars. B12, B17, better on oils, better on proteins. So when we're missing B12 in our diet, we actually don't have strong enough metabolism and we can't break down these heavy oils as effectively as well too. So that's one where people are doing intravenous or intramuscular B12. We've got B complex vitamins, but we also have a lot of good superfoods that allow for us to get complex B vitamins back into our bloodstream and help us digest things much more effectively. So, if you cut inflammation, MSM, turmeric, magnesium, all of the compounds that we normally talk about in our inflammation talk, they will help you, again, reduce the body's need for high levels of cholesterol. So that's one of the great places here that if you're not eating inflammatory foods and you're cutting inflammation down, then you can finally get back to a point to where your body will need less and less cholesterol. But my personal experience with this, you never want to let the cholesterol get too low. I don't know if anybody here is sitting in their chair going, oh, my cholesterol count's 125. I'm so happy for myself because my doctor thinks I'm doing amazing. Just like all the other issues when it comes to deficiency, when you don't have enough cholesterol to keep your body healing properly, then it starts to skip over natural processes and it will heal things with calcium and make them brittle or more breakable, and then actually not healing them with cholesterol and all the good minerals that we're needed to have inside our body. So calcification is a very big issue. Yes, Val?
One more time, a little slower, so I understand a little bit better.
Yeah. So as you are reducing cholesterol in the bloodstream, you're down around 160 or below on the actual testing counts here. then you're going to start healing with things other than cholesterol for the areas where your body is breaking. And you're breaking all the time. You get capillary microfractures all the time. You stress your muscle. Everything has to heal. Your joints, your ligaments, your tendons, everything's being stressed. And it has to heal in very, very small ways. So when you don't have enough cholesterol, your body puts calcium a lot of times in place of it to just plaster or sturdy up that section. And if you do that too often, too many times, we develop things where shin splints, bursitis, tendonitis, the plantar fasciitis, all these inflammatory illnesses are because your body is tightening or lacking flexibility. You need to have those cholesterol values as good as they can be in order to actually heal with silica and sulfur and all these other great minerals that we talk about. But that cholesterol is the biggest fraction there. So too low of cholesterol can be a major problem. And it's definitely something where you'll be starving your brain, your liver, and your heart of the essential fats that are supposed to be inside those areas as well too. So when this whole war against cholesterol started, no one said anything about too low being bad for you. Everyone said, don't get too high, there's going to be a problem, it's going to cause an issue. And really, we just have to understand what's happening here inside our bodies in order to really pull back. So anybody here eat a bunch of quote unquote whole wheat grain because it's heart healthy and it's good for you? No, used to. Yes. So the lie continues. It's so interesting because we get into this idea that healthy whole grains, that's how you stop a lot of this inflammation. It's good for your heart. Eat some Cheerios. Flour is fantastic. While they're actually giving you another source of fiber, I agree with that. That's actually not the worst thing in the world. What they're doing, though, is they're actually bringing in inflammatory response and spiking insulin, causing your body to actually break down a little bit more effectively. And a lot of times now, with our GMO foods and the major amounts of pesticides that are being used in our crops, we're getting a lot of toxicity poisoning from things like glyphosate or Roundup, and that's becoming another major inflammatory activator. So more inflammation, less healthy, more cholesterol, and not really good for the overall human body. So potatoes, French fries, things like that, very commonplace in our food system. Again, very inflammatory for most people. I've got a lot of individuals who have major rheumatoid arthritis, arthritic pain of some sort, leaky gut syndrome, chronic headaches, chronic inflammation, edema. They cut potatoes, tomatoes, bell peppers, and eggplant, and all of a sudden they never have a problem ever again. So it's not that they had any of those issues, those illnesses that they were treating, they actually had a food response and they were inflamed because they were eating something that their body actually was rejecting. So gluten issues, nightshade issues, and one of the unique things for me is that I'm trying to understand now that when you're going through the healing process, you have to have a spike in cholesterol, but how do we turn that process off? Because a lot of people will spike during inflammation and actually need extra cholesterol, and then their body will actually not heal properly, so they'll continuously keep putting cholesterol into the bloodstream as well. So I'm trying to understand now with things like turmeric, with using compounds like MSM or sulfur or DMSO in order to stop that healing system, because I want the body to do its job, but I don't want it to cause problems for an individual. And I don't want it to become a risk issue. And that's definitely something where we have a lot of concern overall to just not let this get out of hand and for it to be an issue here. Like I say, I'm not trying to jump on a place where I'm saying eat as much fat as you want. It still has to be health-minded. It still has to be digested well. You can actually get your body to a point where you're eating high-quality fats from different sources and seeing it break down very effectively. So Atkins people, like I say, the reason they had so many problems was they took their unhealthy bodies and jumped on a really, different style of eating, a dietary plan that was not suited for them and caused a lot of body issues. So really adjust for your own systems. Start with increasing the fibers. Make sure your body's not routinely inflamed. Do a little bit of the actual research on which healthy oils you can add for your system to where you can start feeling a much more sound body, mind, everything. Like I say, we hear that story all the time. People go on statins, start to forget a lot of things, lose their mental capacities because they're literally starving the brain of fats, and they're just not keeping everything up top actually very healthful anymore. So it's so unique. And like I said, I mentioned the idea of the gallbladder. Anybody who's had their gallbladder removed, that's a person who needs to pay attention to where their cholesterol counts are, how their body's breaking down their fats and oils, and if they are in need of it, then they actually need to make sure they get an enzyme donor back inside their overall dietary plan. This is very, very critical. Otherwise, eventually, liver stress starts to happen, kidney stress will begin past that, dietary issues inside the gut will start to happen, and we just see that progression very routinely occurring. Eventually, high blood pressure occurs, then all the other issues just seem to cascade on top of the body once this issue comes around. So I'm here today to tell you that anything that you actually have in front of yourself or any information that says that you've got to watch cholesterol is not true. Just be okay with that, if that's all right. There's a lot of research, there's a lot of information out there. I highly recommend the books Grain Brain and Wheat Belly in order to understand a lot of what occurs on just that one particular aspect around the actual gluten molecule and what it does inside the body and how it creates its issue. But then I also recommend a book called Fats That Heal and Fats That Kill. And that's a really amazing bifurcation for healthy oils versus unhealthy oils and how and why they create the issues they do inside the human body. Highly recommend anybody who wants to understand more about traditional diet structure and eating really good high quality fats and oils and getting them back into their diet. The Weston A. Price Foundation is probably one of the best groups and organizations out there for trying to get it to where your body can at least start incorporating some of the richest foods, the best ways of keeping ourselves healthy. Weston A. Price does a fantastic job, great organization. He held true during the hard times of eating eggs and butter and keeping the good traditional systems alive. And honestly, we have a lot of credit to keeping that in our dietary plans through him. So this is one of those where this month is kind of unique for me on the Thoughtful Thursday topics. I really want people to understand, and it may not be you here in this room. It might be somebody who you actually need to go out and talk to that they're not hearing what you're saying regarding this information. They just trust the doctor. They have high cholesterol. They've been taking the drugs. They don't know that they can work on it in a natural way. Let them see this talk. Let them come in and talk to me, hear this information from you, and say, yeah, actually, there's a little bit more information you might want to take a look at to understand what's going on inside your body in order to start to heal this process. So it's unique because I love working with people on this particular issue because it's a simple issue. It's really not as big and as scary and as complicated. It's just the idea of regulating the inputs, changing the varieties and the qualities, and allowing your body to go back to its normal natural state for being able to process good oils effectively. So there's a lot more, and again, the books that I'm talking about, they're thick, they're big, but it is worth it to get through them, to understand that, and to know how to work with an individual, especially somebody who you actually care, love about, and you want to see them be healthy and actually get into a much better system understanding this whole process. So don't be scared of cholesterol. Go out and actually enjoy that cheesecake every so often. It's good for you. I know it's one of those funny things that a health coach say that. But the idea is, yes, they have to still use really good high quality butter and excellent cream cheese. But it's definitely one of these processes where we really want to enhance everyone's ability to maintain good quality life. There's no reason. Cognitive decline, Alzheimer's disease, dementia is probably one of the saddest systems I've seen happen to people, and I don't understand why anyone has to be in that situation. I know a lot of individuals in this last 5 or 6 years, they just start eating coconut oil, eggs, butter, and honestly, they come back to life even after years of not having good function. And it's just because their brains are being starved. So let's really understand this as best we can. If you have any questions, like I say, feel free, shout them out. Always good to keep going on the whole learning and information. If there's something personal for you that actually might be benefited from coming in and sitting down and talking with me regarding your health plan, your strategies on what you're eating, why and how, maybe some of the myths you've been told about certain things like cholesterol, this is going to be, again, a great month because we're doing this one and then adrenal fatigue, because since I missed that last month. The diabetic dilemma, again, what they told you about sugar is completely false. I don't know why we let this get the way it's going. And just letting people allow this whole process of being able to discuss intelligently with people who don't want to hear it, but they need to because it's actually you caring about them and you trying to make them healthy. So I want to help that process along.
So my friend who's in, he tends to go for the yolks,
Uh-huh.
the whites, not the yolks.
Ah.
And I believe in eating the whites.
Mm-hmm.
And they were told they have high cholesterol. What should they do?
So if they have high cholesterol now, are they on a statin drugs? The first question. If they're not, great. They probably need to increase fiber, and that's one of the first things I would say is they need to get about 50 to 60 grams of fiber a day and see what that does to their overall cholesterol values.
Is that prebiotic type fiber or just?
No, rice bran solubles, lucuma, sunflower lecithin. Just again, if you eat a lot of fats and proteins, vegetables are your medicine. That's where fiber is contained in. It's really simple and easy. Broccolini goes great with steak. But it is one of those processes where if they can see their dietary levels really come down on their overall cholesterol, they're being told that they have high cholesterol and they might be like a 240, 250, which really isn't that high. But according to the 199 cap, then they're having an issue. So that's one of those where they may just need to reframe what they understand to be healthy and what's a concern. And that could help a lot because if they start to go above, say, 300, 400, yeah, they really do need to figure that out. They might be eating some sort of inflammatory foods. They might be eating a lot of microwave material, fast foods, I just don't know. But look at those dietary decisions and kind of step back and go, yeah, you eat a lot of potatoes. You know, potatoes are inflammatory and they could probably be the thing that's causing your overall cholesterol to keep rising.
And what about raw potatoes? I read a book about raw potatoes.
Yeah, and
It's
resistant
good,
starch.
yeah, it absorbs.
It can. There's definitely some piece to that. People who are allergenic to the nightshade family, though, that's way worse. The only reason we can even eat potatoes is because we cook them and not cause major issues. So this is one where telling a person to start eating a bunch of raw potatoes could actually hurt them a lot. And there's other ways, much healthier ways of getting in good quality fibers and ways for actually allowing this digestive system. And again, maybe they just need some MSM and that'll start activating their liver and they'll feel much better. But no, there's definitely some places to start with somebody who's got that. But just try not to let them get on the drug. That's the most important part there. Most important part. Yes?
What is, because my husband had been on statin,
Uh-huh.
and what is it, or why is the muscle pain and problems? What is that
They're
about?
losing the actual connective fats that go in between the strands of muscle. And what happens to a lot of individuals is their muscle fibers will actually go very spindly and they'll stretch away from where they're supposed to be kept naturally. So the way muscle fibers are bundled, they have a very heavy connective tissue in there that's a very large amount of fat. And so their body starts harvesting that and taking it out of the muscle, and then the muscles will get stuck in ways, or they'll get cramped in ways that they can't come back from. Go back to the magnesiums, really allow that to happen. Get the good quality fats back in the diet. Silica and sulfur, very important for rewrapping and rebundling all those muscle fibers. High quality, good resistant exercises as well. Body weight only, don't do anything heavier, because if you're in that place where your muscles are starting to have that pain, your joints are probably just as loose and they could have a lot of injury and damage to them as well too. Like I say, I hope it's not one of those where he went on a drug like a statin and then had knee surgery afterwards or anything, because that's one of those where, again, we see a lot of issues.
Well, actually, he was on it, and he started having problems with his muscles, and
Yeah.
he just stopped it.
Good.
I thought he was going to die. I mean, he was in more pain just
Yeah.
from,
Pulling
stopping
it
it
out.
like that. So no matter go back on it, going, what is it that
Yeah, yeah, it's like I say, our muscle fibering, whenever it's ripped apart like that, like I say, if there's a condition out there called rhabdomyolysis, and that's kind of probably what started that, is that his body started eating the connective tissue around his muscles. So glad he's off of it.
Yeah.
Stay away from it. Very important.
Triglycerides.
Uh-huh.
What are your thoughts on triglycerides? Because I know just from my own practice and seeing it, a lot of times patients that have strokes, they come in and they have extremely high triglycerides.
Correct.
And part of that too, they always relate back to inflammatory oil type diet. So I know a lot of patients that come in are high, fried food diets.
Yeah.
So is the triglycerides more related to that or the process post-stroke?
So, okay, so let me break this into two pieces. One is the dietary side. A triglyceride means any oil, saturated, polysaturated, or monosaturated, because there are 3 lipid trains, that come off of a fat molecule, and that's how we call it. So presence of fat in the bloodstream a lot of times means he's not digesting it, the person or whoever it is, the patient there. And so they're just not breaking it down. And just like a diabetic, the idea is, you see a lot of glucose in their bloodstream, so it's back to that same process. Their liver's probably not activating, maybe it's under stress from other things, and so their body's not breaking it down and trying to float it around the blood. And eventually, yes, what happens is you get coagulation, and then a stroke occurs or an aneurysm, happens. And it's unique because the dietary, restrictions, if they cut out all of the inflammatory oils, usually their triglycerides would come back down. If they just started eating something like coconut oil only for a period of time and increase that fiber count with a little bit of liver activation, they would see those overall triglycerides finally start to drop. Triglycerides are the material that we break down in order to make HDL, LDL, VDLs, all of the actual lipids that are in the rest of our body, all of our sterols, all the other material that we need from our fats. So yes, there's a correlation there. Now, the unique thing is that most stroke individuals also having inflammatory or autoimmune conditions, their body is attacking their musculature, their breakdown on the actual inside of their body, and they're trying to heal things in order to actually get that overall level of cholesterol back in. So they're breaking capillaries in all parts of their brain. They've got areas where oxidation of fats has occurred, and their body is literally just slapping plaster anywhere it can, and then eventually they pop a blood vessel and they stroke out. So it is interesting how that happens. The dietary plan, fiber, good quality oils, good liver activation can help. And again, much better than even going on a statin and trying to pull that out of the bloodstream. But no, I love that. Like I say, triglycerides are very different. They're just a way of saying you have fat present. Same thing like saying you have glucose present. So, fantastic. And go. So like I say, this was fun. I enjoyed this one. I hope everyone goes back and reads the agenda and finds all the hidden 1970s classic country rock. It was fun. It was really fun putting this one together. I don't know why I couldn't get those songs out of my head. But like I say, I enjoy everybody coming this evening. Feel free, catch, like I say, if you can go to brilliancenutrition.com, you can find my schedule there. I'll have all my talks, all the different places where I'll be doing different events for the next month. I'll have the handouts in the back there for anybody who wants to know the Thoughtful Thursday schedule for this month. And if there's anything more personal, feel free, let me know after class here. Remember, anything you want to pick up when you're here at Thoughtful Thursdays, 10% off on all your purchases. So that way, and if you are catching this video and you're needing questions answered, feel free to email me at brilliancenutrition@gmail.com or joseph@rrsuperfoods.com. Thank you very much. You guys have a great night.
So on this, it's having that present in the triple. Is that, I added that?
Well, it's not digesting, so if it's really, really high, like triglycerides are in the 7, 8, like 1100s, then yeah, you're a person who's just not breaking fat down. And that could mean that your gallbladder's leaky and it's got a ton of junk in it and it's not producing enzymes, or your liver's blown up, or other issues are happening. But a flush, you gotta flush it. The Mershowitz flush is probably the best. So the grapefruit juice, apples, Epsom salt, that flush is probably one of the best ones. Glad you could make it this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming by. No, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.